It was past 8 p.m. at the Ellen's Church Welfare Home, and a single flickering light bulb cast faint shadows that danced across the walls. The room was small, with just the basics, a worn bed, a wardrobe, and a simple desk. But it was enough for the boy who lived there. Oh, I can't stand this anymore. Alex Wilson, a slim boy of about 11, stared at his reflection in the mirror. He rubbed his chin absently, flexing his fingers as if trying to catch something in the air. His slender but strong hands opened and closed, a habit he barely noticed anymore. It had been 11 years since he found himself in this strange world. He'd arrived here as a baby, yet with the memories of a grown man. Being stuck in an orphanage in the 1980s, with no computers or cell phones, felt unbearably slow to someone from his old life. Every day, he yearned for more than this boring, quiet existence. A loud knock interrupted his thoughts. Alex, boss, you in there? A voice called. Alex frowned, crossing the room. What are you doing yelling at this hour? He asked, opening the door a crack. Aren't you worried the staff will catch you? Standing outside was William, a boy around 17, taller but scruffier than Alex. His shirt was wrinkled, and his pants, held up by suspenders, looked like they'd seen better days. Still, William grinned, trying to hide his weariness as he held a large cardboard box. Sorry, boss, this thing's heavy and nearly wore me out, William chuckled nervously. Alex rolled his eyes. Why are you so late? You didn't run into those guys from the North District again, did you? William quickly shook his head. Nah, ever since you teach them a lesson, they've kept their distance. It just took longer than expected today. We picked up a lot of good stuff, he said, handing Alex a few folded banknotes. Here's our share for the week. Alex took the money, his face calm. Good work, get some rest. He turned to the box, ready to open it, but William lingered, looking hesitant. Alex raised an eyebrow. What is it? I've got practice to get to. William laughed awkwardly. Well, since it's still early, we were thinking we could play poker. Alex cut him off. Fine, but don't gamble. If Mama catches you again, she'll confiscate everything. William's face brightened as he grabbed a wooden box from under the bed. Thanks, boss, I'll bring it back in a couple of days. With that, he hurried off, leaving Alex alone. Shaking his head, Alex muttered, teaching them poker was probably a mistake. Now they're hooked. He sighed but smiled as he turned back to the cardboard box. Inside were items he'd been looking forward to, bottles of soy sauce, sesame oil, vinegar, and other condiments. Just seeing them made him feel a bit more at home. Finally, some proper seasoning, he said with satisfaction. If I have to eat bland food one more day, I might actually lose my mind. Living in an orphanage wasn't easy, especially without modern comforts. Alex often wondered if he had been reincarnated or just thrown into a new world. The only thing he knew was that he had to adapt. With memories of his past life as a soldier, staying calm and focused came naturally to him. There was no point in panicking. He packed away the condiments, locking his door out of habit. After all, he had a secret no one else knew about. Alex looked over at a dumbbell in the corner, a heavy 25-kilogram weight. He lifted his hand, focusing on the object. Slowly, as if guided by an invisible force, the dumbbell floated, hovering a few inches off the ground. He grinned. The ability to move things with his mind, his superpower, as he called it, was something he discovered years ago. It had happened one day after a long workout. Too tired to get up and grab his water, he wished it would come to him, and, to his shock, it did. Ever since then, Alex practiced his power in secret, careful not to let anyone see. He knew that in a place like this, run by the church, people would view him as a freak if they ever found out. They might even try to get rid of him. Alex watched the dumbbell float above his head as he walked to his desk and sat down, flipping open a worn-out book. This was his routine. He'd practice controlling his power while reading or relaxing. He called it time-lapse training. After testing his abilities over the years, he found that training his body gave him better control over his powers. It was as if his physical and mental strength were connected. The calmer he was, the stronger his powers became. Alex gently lowered the dumbbell back to the ground, feeling his mind relax as the strain eased. As a soldier in his past life, he had set up a strict routine for himself. Every day, he practiced martial arts, meditated, and trained his power. He wanted to master it, understanding that in a world like this, powers like his were both a gift and a curse. Still, part of him couldn't help but wonder if he was wasting his time here, stuck in an orphanage, hidden away from the world. With a quiet sigh, Alex looked out the window into the dim London night. I don't know where this path will lead, but I'll be ready when the time comes. Recently, he noticed that lifting weights didn't tire him out like it used to. From years of training, he knew that without feeling the strain, he wasn't truly building strength. Realizing this, he adjusted his approach. Instead of only adding weight, he started practicing time-lapse training, where he'd keep objects floating for as long as possible, stretching his power's limits. It worked. At first, he could only keep objects in the air for about 5 minutes before feeling dizzy. Alex knew better than to push himself too hard without understanding the limits of his ability, so he stopped whenever he felt too tired. After resting for a day and feeling no lasting mental strain, he was reassured that the training was safe. Since then, he practiced every night, slowly building up his stamina. Over the years, he noticed steady progress. What started as 5 minutes turned into much longer. Now, after more than a year of practice, Alex could keep an object afloat for nearly 40 minutes without feeling tired. Tonight, he made a dumbbell float, orbiting around him like a planet circling the sun. Each time it rotated, he changed its path, sometimes in a figure eight, other times flipping it up and down in complex movements. The strain was beginning to build, and he could feel the pressure in his mind. Sensing the session was nearly over, he guided the dumbbell back to its spot in the corner and stretched his arms. It's getting easier, he muttered to himself. Who knows, maybe someday I'll be flying swords like those guys in the novels. Little did he know, as he joked with himself about the future, far to the north, in a magical school called Hogwarts, owls were being sent out with acceptance letters. One of those owls was already flying through the night sky, making its way to the Ellen's Church Welfare Home in London. The next morning, the orphanage was quiet. Alex pushed open his window, letting fresh morning air fill his small room. After taking a deep breath, he changed into clean clothes and headed to the courtyard. He started each day with some light exercise before breakfast, and today was no different. He began with a series of punches, his movements smooth and precise from years of disciplined practice. Ha, he exhaled, finishing his set and wiping the sweat from his brow. He stretched out, feeling the familiar relief in his muscles, and made his way to the cafeteria. Morning, Mother Triss, Alex greeted the elderly nun who ran the orphanage's daily routines. I could smell that pumpkin porridge from outside, he added with a grin. Mother Triss, stirring a large pot, smiled warmly. Morning, Alex, up early again, I see. If only the other children were as disciplined as you, I'd have much less to worry about. She handed him a bowl of porridge, and Alex accepted it with a polite nod. Thank you, Mother Triss. He knew better than to say much more. If she knew he was really an adult soldier's soul in an 11-year-old's body, she might not be as impressed by his discipline. After finishing breakfast, he thanked her again and returned to his room. But as soon as he stepped inside, Alex froze. Something was strange. Sitting calmly on his desk was a brown owl, its sharp eyes fixed on him. The owl wasn't just sitting there, it was busy. With practiced skill, it untied a letter from its leg and set it neatly on the desk, then perched on the windowsill, waiting. Alex stared, his mind racing. Slowly, he shut the door and walked over to the desk, picking up the envelope. There was no stamp. The address, written in bright green ink, read. Mr. Alex Wilson, Ellen's Church Welfare Home, Shaftesbury Street, London. Turning it over, he saw a wax seal with a coat of arms, a large H, surrounded by a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake. What kind of letter is this? Alex muttered, carefully opening it. Inside was a neatly folded letter that read, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Sorcerer, Chief Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confederation of Wizards. Dear Mr. Wilson, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. _ Alex blinked, reading the letter in disbelief. Hogwarts. He hadn't expected this. Sure, he had strange powers, but the idea that he was part of a magical world felt unreal. He'd always thought his telekinesis was just a superpower. But now, he realized it was something more. Another thought hit him. He knew almost nothing about Harry Potter. His memory of his old life was foggy in places, but he knew Harry Potter became famous in the 1990s. And here he was, in 1980, receiving a letter from Hogwarts. Curious and uncertain, Alex sat at his desk, glancing at the owl, which was still watching him intently. Waiting for my reply, huh, he mused. I don't have any food for you, though. The owl stayed silent, its gaze unblinking. All right, I'll write the reply. Alex picked up a pen and paper, writing a careful response. He thanked them for the acceptance and mentioned that, as an orphan, he had no knowledge of the wizarding world. He asked if there was any help available to get him ready for this strange new life. After folding the letter, he placed it in a fresh envelope and held it out to the owl. The bird took it without a fuss, tucked it into its feathers, and flew off into the morning light. Wow, that bird's all business, Alex muttered, watching the owl vanish. I wonder what the wizarding world is like right now. Has Voldemort already been defeated by Harry? His knowledge of Harry Potter was limited, just bits he remembered from chats with friends. He vaguely knew Voldemort had attacked Harry's family but couldn't kill him. What was happening in the magical world in the 1980s, though, was a mystery to him, as was most of the story. Well, no point in overthinking it. I'll just wait for Hogwarts' reply. In any world, strength is what matters most. Getting stronger is always the right choice, he decided, turning his focus back to his daily routine. Alex's summer at the orphanage followed a strict training plan he had set for himself. Each day, he started with a warm-up, then boxing, balance exercises, aerobics, meditation, and finally, telekinesis, training, though he now knew it was magic. Each activity was carried out with military precision, one after the other, in an orderly fashion. Time flew by with such a routine, and just 2 days after receiving his Hogwarts letter, a special guest arrived at the orphanage. Are you saying you're Professor McGonagall from Hogwarts? Alex asked, looking at the middle-aged woman standing at his door. She wore square glasses, had curly dark hair in a neat bun, and was dressed in a dark green robe. That's correct. I'm Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress of Hogwarts. I saw your reply, Mr. Wilson. We visit Muggle-born students or those like you who are new to the wizarding world, Professor McGonagall explained, her voice calm but firm. After a pause, she added, and, of course, we visit independent young men like yourself. Ah, sorry, Professor McGonagall. Please, come in. Alex stepped aside, a little embarrassed. I'm still getting used to the whole magic school thing. Professor McGonagall entered, glancing around. The room was small and modest, with a neatly made bed, a simple desk, and a shelf lined with books. In one corner, dumbbells were stacked, and on the windowsill sat a lone pot of green onions. She noted the neat, organized space with quiet approval. It was clear that Alex led a disciplined life, something rare among children. It gave her a good impression. I apologize for the plain room, Professor. It's not much, Alex said, moving the only chair in the room toward her. That's quite all right, Alex. I brought my own chair. With a wave of her wand, the dumbbells in the corner transformed into a wooden chair. She sat down gracefully, her movements smooth. Alex couldn't help but feel amazed. He had seen magic in action for the first time, but despite his awe, he maintained his composure. Sitting across from her, he smiled slightly. I thought you might reply in August since the letter asked for a response by the end of July. That's mostly for children from magical families, Professor McGonagall explained. We visit children unfamiliar with the wizarding world a bit earlier. And these days, the magical world is more on edge. She hesitated for a moment, choosing not to go into details. As you may have noticed, certain strange things have likely happened to you in recent years. Young wizards and witches usually experience accidental bursts of magic, called magical surges or underage magic. Hogwarts teaches students to control and use this magic properly. Alex nodded as she spoke. Then, with a casual wave of his hand, a nearby cup floated up and hovered in front of him. Professor McGonagall's eyebrows lifted in surprise. That's remarkable, casting a levitation spell without a wand, and silently. Mr. Wilson, are you sure no one has taught you magic before? Yes, Professor, I discovered my abilities on my own. I thought it was a superpower, like we say in the Muggle world. I practiced through meditation and trial and error. Of course, I'm nowhere near being able to do what you just did. Alex smiled modestly. You'll learn all that and more at Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall reassured him, clearly pleased with his natural talent and dedication. As she spoke, however, a brief flicker of concern crossed her face. The world outside was dangerous these days, with darkness lurking in the shadows. But she quickly brushed the thought aside. Let's not waste any more time, Alex. We still need to meet with the orphanage's management, and then I'll help you gather your school supplies. She stood up. Professor McGonagall smoothly handled Alex's paperwork with the orphanage staff. Alex suspected some magic might have been involved, considering how smoothly everything went. No one questioned his sudden departure. Did you use magic to convince Mother Triss and the others? Alex asked with a curious smile. They seemed a little too happy to let me go. Professor McGonagall gave a rare, playful grin. A small confundus charm, just to make things go smoothly. Don't worry, it won't have any lasting effects. They'll remember you and welcome you back for the holidays. Alex laughed softly, feeling reassured. Thank you for making that easier. Now, let's get you ready for school, Professor McGonagall said. Given your situation, I've applied for a bursary on your behalf. You'll receive 12 gold galleons each year to cover your expenses. She noticed his puzzled look. Galleons are the currency in the wizarding world, she explained. 1 galleon is worth 17 silver sickles, and 1 silver sickle is worth 29 nuts. Alex sighed. Of course, the UK would make even currency complicated, he thought, smiling wryly. Looks like I have a lot to learn. Can Muggle money be used in the wizarding world? Alex asked. At Gringotts, Muggle money can be exchanged for galleons. 5 pounds will get you 1 galleon, but you can't exchange more than 100 galleons worth at a time. She'd been handling admissions for years, so she had all the answers, though she doubted Alex would have much to exchange, probably just some pocket money. Alex grinned, pulling out a neatly folded stack of pounds. Looks like I'm covered, then, he said confidently, licking his fingers to count through the notes. Professor McGonagall raised an eyebrow, surprised by how much he had. I see, she said, nodding. That should be more than enough. You might even have some left over for something extra. As they left the orphanage, she led Alex into a narrow alleyway. Normally, we'd take a Muggle vehicle or the night bus to Diagon Alley, she explained. But the wizarding world has been a bit unstable lately, so we'll need to apparate instead. It's the safest way. She drew her wand and motioned for Alex to take her hand. Hold on tight. Apparition, unstable, Alex thought, trying to process what she'd said. He reached out and grabbed her hand just as they disappeared with a loud pop. The sensation hit Alex like a punch. It felt like he was being squeezed through a tight, spinning tunnel, with invisible hands pressing on him from all sides. His head spun, and he felt as though his body had been squashed into a tiny ball. When they finally landed with a thud, Alex stumbled, his legs shaking from the aftershock. His stomach churned, and he instinctively braced himself against a nearby wall. Sorry, Professor McGonagall said, noticing his pale face. She pointed her wand at him, and a warm, soft light streamed from its tip, spreading through him. Alex felt the nausea fade, replaced by a comforting warmth. Better, she asked kindly. Alex nodded, standing straighter. Was that magic? He murmured, still processing the strange sensation. That was rougher than I expected. Couldn't we have, I don't know, used a portal or something? That was apparition, Professor McGonagall explained. It's a common way for adult wizards to travel, but it can feel pretty harsh the first time. You'll learn how to do it in your 7th year at Hogwarts. Alex took a deep breath, composing himself. Do we need to apparate again? McGonagall chuckled softly. No need, we're close. She gestured for him to follow her out of the alley and onto a bustling street. After a short walk, they arrived at a small, unimpressive gap between a record store and a bookstore. Hidden in plain sight, there was a bar with a faded sign hanging above it, the Leaky Cauldron. Can other people see this place? Alex asked, noticing that no one seemed to be paying attention to the bar. Good eye, Alex, McGonagall said with a smile. Muggles can't see it, it's hidden by powerful enchantments. As they stepped inside, Alex was greeted by the dim, shadowy interior. The bar looked old, with cobwebs in the corners and creaky wooden floors. Behind the counter, an elderly bartender was polishing a glass, the dim light casting a weary shadow over his face. Tom, how's business? McGonagall asked as if they were old friends. Not great, Tom grumbled. There was a scuffle in Nocturne Alley last night, Aurors and Dark Wizards at it again. Almost broke my windows, and business has been dead since. McGonagall gave him a sympathetic nod. Hang in there, Tom. It'll get better. A new student? Tom asked, looking at Alex. Yes, sir, Alex replied, bowing his head politely. His manners left a good impression on the old bartender. Take care of yourself, lad, Tom said kindly. It's getting dangerous out there. McGonagall motioned for Alex to follow as they walked through the bar and into a small courtyard out back. This is the entrance to Diagon Alley, she explained. You'll need to come here on your own one day, so pay attention. She tapped a few specific bricks on the wall with her wand. 1, 2, 3, and suddenly, the wall shifted and rolled away, forming a tall archway that led to a lively street beyond. Alex's eyes widened as he stepped through. The cobbled street stretched ahead, lined with all sorts of shops, selling everything from broomsticks to cauldrons. But as he looked closer, he noticed the place seemed quieter than he'd expected. Several shops were closed, and groups of wizards in long coats, Aurors, he guessed, patrolled the streets. Professor, Alex said quietly, those people in coats, they don't look like shoppers. Are they? Yes, they're Aurors, McGonagall confirmed, her tone serious. They're here to keep order. The wizarding world isn't as safe as it used to be, but don't worry, Hogwarts is well protected. You'll be safe there, I promise. Let's get going to Gringotts and exchange some money. I can tell you're eager to see what you've got, Professor McGonagall said, smiling knowingly. She had noticed Alex's excitement and found it amusing. As they walked, Professor McGonagall gave him a quick explanation. Gringotts is the only wizarding bank in the UK. It's run by goblins and is known as the second safest place in the world, after Hogwarts. Alex followed her through the bustling streets of Diagon Alley. The street soon split into two. One path led to Nocturne Alley, a darker, more sinister area, while the other continued along the main road. Right at the intersection stood Gringotts, a grand, gleaming white building with a goblin guard at the entrance, proudly dressed in a striking scarlet and gold uniform. They entered through a large set of bronze doors. The goblin guards bowed respectfully, and Alex couldn't help but feel a bit out of place. They passed through another set of silver doors and entered a grand marble hall. The room buzzed with activity. Goblins sat behind long counters, scribbling in enormous ledgers, weighing stacks of coins, and examining glittering gemstones through tiny eyepieces. Despite the chaos outside, the goblins seemed unaffected, calmly going about their business. Professor McGonagall led Alex to one of the counters. He showed his Hogwarts admission letter, and after a brief conversation, he received a bursary of 12 gold galleons meant to help students who needed it. Alex had planned to exchange his pounds as well, so he took the bursary and added another 100 galleons from his British pounds. For an 11-year-old, it was an enormous sum, and his leather pouch now felt satisfyingly heavy with the weight of gold. As they stepped outside, Alex examined one of the galleons in his hand with curiosity. It looks like pure gold, but it feels a bit different. That's because goblins made them, Professor McGonagall explained. They use special techniques and enchantments, making sure no one can forge them outside the bank. She glanced at Alex's gold-filled pouch and smiled. I imagine you're eager to get your own wand now. In the wizarding world, you can't do much without one. Alex nodded eagerly as they made their way to Ollivander's, the famous wand shop with a long, mysterious history. The shop was small and a bit shabby, but it had an air of mystery about it. In the front window, a single wand lay on a faded purple cushion, and inside, towering shelves were filled with narrow, dusty boxes stacked to the ceiling. Behind the counter, a thin old man was carefully polishing a wand. His pale eyes looked up as they entered. Good afternoon, Mr. Ollivander. We're here to buy a wand, Professor McGonagall greeted him warmly. Ah, Minerva, Ollivander said in a soft, raspy voice. 9½ inches, cold wood. I remember it well. He looked at Alex, his eyes narrowing with interest. Ah, a new student. Ready for your first wand. Hello, sir. My name is Alex Wilson. Ollivander gave a small smile. Ah, polite young man. Rare these days. He pulled out a long silver measuring tape. Let's find the right wand for you. Which hand do you use? My right hand, Alex replied. Ollivander measured him from shoulder to fingertip, wrist to elbow, and even around his head. He hummed thoughtfully, feeling Alex's arm. Quite strong for your age. Impressive. Alex tensed slightly, feeling a bit uneasy. Isn't he just supposed to measure me? Why's he feeling my muscles? Ollivander quickly pulled a wand from the shelf. Try this one, Ash, Phoenix Feather Core, 11½ inches, quite sturdy. Alex took the wand and gave it a gentle wave. The tip sparked a small flame. No, that's not quite right, Ollivander muttered, taking it back and handing him another. Elm, Dragon Heartstring Core, 9¾ inches. Wisdom and grace. The moment Alex touched it, Ollivander snatched it back. No, not this one either. After a few more tries, Ollivander retrieved another box from the shelf, his eyes glinting with interest. Now, try this, ebony, with a core of augury feathers, 12¼ inches. Firm, unshakable, a wand for someone with great determination. As soon as Alex grasped it, he felt a strange connection, like it was an extension of his arm. The dark wood gleamed, and the tip flickered with a faint electric light. Ollivander's face lit up. Ah, there it is. A perfect match. It's always a joy when a wand finds its true owner. Alex smiled, giving the wand a gentle wave. The connection felt natural, as if the wand was meant for him. Thank you, Mr. Ollivander. I really like it. Ebony is excellent for combat magic and transfiguration. This wand will serve you well. Remember, your first wand is priced at 7 galleons, and the rest is covered by Hogwarts. Be careful with it. Wands are irreplaceable once bonded. Alex paid the gold, thanked Ollivander again, and left the shop with Professor McGonagall. His heart raced with excitement as they walked down Diagon Alley. He finally had his own wand, and the magical world felt even more real now. All right, Alex, we spent a bit of time on the wand. We need to hurry and get the rest of your school supplies, Professor McGonagall said, glancing at the sky as evening approached. Got it, Professor, Alex replied, eager to continue. With Professor McGonagall by his side, they moved between shops across Diagon Alley. At the transforming ink stationery store, Alex bought parchment, ink, and a few quills. Then they went to Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions, where he was fitted for his Hogwarts uniform. Next was the Potage Cauldron shop for a standard pewter cauldron, followed by Blossom Bookstore to pick up a full set of textbooks. Alex also stopped at the Magical Menagerie, where he bought an owl, a lively creature with bright eyes, and supplies to take care of it. He felt surprisingly happy with the owl, sensing it would be a good companion. By the time they finished shopping, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the street. Professor McGonagall turned to Alex and said, well, we've gotten everything you need for school. It's getting late, and while Diagon Alley is usually safe, it's best for young wizards not to be out after dark. Let's head back. Alex, feeling grateful for her help, smiled and said, thank you, Professor McGonagall. But before we go, how about I treat you to a drink? It's the least I can do to thank you for everything. McGonagall considered it briefly, then nodded. All right, but let's not stay out too long. They walked to Florine Fortescue's ice cream parlor and ordered cold drinks. Once they found a quiet table, Alex took a sip and couldn't resist asking, Professor, now that I have a wand, can I start practicing magic? McGonagall smiled but shook her head slightly. Magic is more complicated than you think, Alex. Using spells without proper guidance can be dangerous, especially in the Muggle world. The Ministry of Magic keeps a close watch on underage wizards. She leaned in, her voice calm but firm. There's a spell called the Trace, which lets the Ministry know if anyone under 17 does magic outside of school. In places like Diagon Alley, where magic is everywhere, they might not notice it. But in the Muggle world, it's like sending up a flare. So no spells at the orphanage. Alex nodded, absorbing the information. So, it's safer to practice in places like this, where magic is all around. In theory, yes, but it's still risky to use spells without a teacher. You'll learn everything you need at Hogwarts, so I'd save your curiosity for the classroom. I understand, Alex replied, though part of him was itching to try out the magic he'd been hearing so much about. He took another sip, already thinking about his first year at school. Are there many professors like you at Hogwarts? What about the headmaster, Dumbledore? What is he like? McGonagall raised an eyebrow and chuckled softly. With all these questions, you might do well in Ravenclaw, Mr. Wilson. She paused before continuing. Dumbledore is, well, he's the most powerful wizard alive. You'll meet him soon. He's the headmaster of Hogwarts, and I think you'll find him wise and kind. Right now, he's in Hogsmeade interviewing someone for the divination position. Though personally, I don't see much value in that subject. Before Alex could ask another question, a voice interrupted them. Professor McGonagall, what a surprise to see you here. Alex looked up to see a man and a woman entering the shop. The man wore glasses and had neatly combed black hair. His hazel eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief. Beside him was a woman with long, dark red hair and almond-shaped eyes. She was clearly pregnant and smiled warmly at Professor McGonagall. Lily, James, what brings you here? McGonagall asked, looking pleased but surprised to see them. We're getting ready for the baby, James explained, grinning and resting a hand on Lily's arm. Just picking up a few last-minute things. And you, Professor, helping a new student, I see. James's gaze shifted to Alex. You must be a new student. Muggle-born, are you? Where are your parents? Alex felt a slight sting at the question but kept his expression calm. Yes, I'm Muggle-born. As for my parents, well, I never got the chance to meet them. James's smile faded a little, and he quickly apologized. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all right, Alex said, shrugging. It's just how things are. Professor McGonagall stepped in to introduce them. This is Alex Wilson, one of our new first years. And Alex, these are James and Lily Potter, Hogwarts alumni and both very talented wizards. James laughed. Talented, I don't know about that, but thanks, Professor. Lily, who had been quiet, smiled kindly at Alex. It's nice to meet you, Alex. You'll love Hogwarts. Do you have any idea which house you might end up in? I'm not sure yet, Alex replied. But I'm excited to find out. As they chatted, Alex grew curious. He glanced at Lily's pregnant belly and asked, so, your baby is due soon. Have you picked out a name? Lily's face lit up. Yes, he's due at the end of the month. If it's a boy, we've decided to name him Harry. Harry Potter. Alex felt a jolt of recognition. He'd heard that name before, Harry Potter. Everything clicked into place. He was standing with Harry's parents, and they were still alive, which meant Voldemort wasn't gone yet. No wonder Diagon Alley seemed tense, with Aurors patrolling and fewer people around. Professor McGonagall noticed Alex's expression but didn't say anything, letting the moment pass quietly. Alex didn't remember much about Harry Potter's childhood. All he knew was that Voldemort had found the Potter's house, killed Harry's parents, and then was defeated somehow by the infant Harry. He had no idea exactly how Voldemort was actually defeated or what happened after that. Should I warn them? He wondered. Seeing James and Lily so happy, Alex felt a wave of uncertainty. He knew what was coming for them, but how could he say something so awful? Lily noticed the troubled look on his face and smiled kindly. Are you nervous about starting at Hogwarts? She asked. I was Muggle-born too, and I remember being so anxious before I went. I couldn't sleep for days. But once you're there, you won't regret it. And I hope you get sorted into Gryffindor. James added enthusiastically. All the houses are good in their own way, but you'd do well in Gryffindor. Just stay clear of Slytherin, he added, grimacing slightly, clearly not a fan of that house. Don't listen to him, Lily said, playfully nudging James. Every house has its own special qualities. It's not about where you're sorted, but how you make the most of your time at Hogwarts. If you stay true to yourself and work hard, you'll achieve great things no matter what house you're in. Thank you, Alex replied with a polite nod. Alex wasn't nervous about starting school. He was more mature than most kids his age, but even so, Lily's gentle advice warmed him inside. Her kindness was a reminder of why he couldn't bring himself to warn them. How could he possibly tell them about their future? That Voldemort would one day come for them, taking their lives. Even if they believed him, what could they do? They were already his enemies. They must have known the risks. Professor McGonagall looked up at the darkening sky and stood. It's getting late, Alex. We should head back. Diagon Alley might be safe, but it's still best not to linger after dark. And you too, James, Lily, be careful as well. Yes, Professor, Alex replied, standing up. Before leaving, he turned to Lily, feeling an urge to say something, anything, that might help. Mrs. Potter, please be careful. I'm sure your child will make you very proud one day. He hoped that would be enough. He couldn't change what was coming, but he could at least offer a small warning. Lily smiled warmly, clearly touched. Thank you, Alex, you're very sweet. She reached into her bag and handed him a small object. This is something I made myself. Think of it as a good luck charm, Lily said with a gentle smile. Take it as a gift to celebrate your acceptance into Hogwarts. And if you ever need anything, or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Alex looked down at the small copper plate she handed him. It was carefully engraved with the image of a doe, every line and detail beautifully crafted. The charm felt warm in his hand, carrying a sense of her kindness and thoughtfulness. Thank you, Mrs. Potter. I'll keep it safe, he promised, tucking the charm into his pocket with great care. After exchanging a few more goodbyes with the Potters, Alex turned to follow Professor McGonagall out of the shop, casting one last look back as he left. As they left Diagon Alley, they apparated again. Though it still felt uncomfortable, Alex managed it better this time, shaking off the dizziness. He said goodnight to Professor McGonagall and made his way back to the orphanage. In his small room, Alex sat on his bed, thinking over everything that had happened. The magical world fascinated him, but he also felt uneasy. Voldemort was still out there, and danger seemed to lurk under everything. He knew he couldn't rely on anyone else for safety, he needed to be able to protect himself. As he replayed his conversations with Professor McGonagall in his mind, he pieced together what he'd learned. First, the Ministry of Magic was under strict watch, and young wizards were closely monitored by a spell called the Trace, which detected magic used by underage wizards. Second, the Ministry's detection wasn't perfect in places like Diagon Alley, where there were many wizards. And third, with Dumbledore in charge and the Ministry actively fighting Voldemort, there was some protection in the magical world, at least for now. But Alex knew that wasn't enough. He needed to get stronger to protect himself. That meant learning magic faster and better than anyone else. He reached into his pocket and took out his wand, admiring its smooth, dark surface. The ebony wand, now named Dark Painting, seemed to hum with power in his hand. "It's just you and me now," Alex whispered. "Let's show the magical world what we can do." The wand sparked with a faint arc of electricity, as if responding to him. Alex felt their bond deepen, the wand becoming like an extension of himself. With his mind set, he lay down, ready to begin his journey tomorrow. Meanwhile, far away at Hogwarts, the castle lay under the night sky, its towering spires gleaming in the moonlight, a sleeping giant filled with ancient magic. Professor McGonagall entered Dumbledore's office, where he sat calmly, stroking his phoenix, Fox. "Albus, how did the interview go? I'm not too sure about this divination business. Most fortune tellers in the magical world are fakes," she said, sounding skeptical. Dumbledore chuckled. "I'm afraid you'll have to adjust your expectations, Minerva. We'll soon have our very first divination professor at Hogwarts." He paused, his eyes twinkling, but his tone grew more serious. It was quite an extraordinary prophecy today. McGonagall raised an eyebrow, curious but not pushing for details. "I see. Well, I also met with one of our new students today, Alex Wilson. He's Muggle-born, very disciplined and polite, from what I saw." Dumbledore looked thoughtful. "Ah, yes, Alex. I've heard good things about him. And how was your encounter with the Potters? Their baby is due at the end of the month. Has the exact date been set?" "Yes, that's what they said," McGonagall replied. "They even gave Alex a small gift. I could sense some magic in it. Lily's been practicing with alchemy tools, and it seems she's quite skilled." She hesitated before adding, "As for Alex, he's far more independent than I expected. He has more savings than most 11-year-olds in an orphanage would. I didn't pry, but it's clear he can look after himself." Dumbledore's gaze drifted into the distance, his expression thoughtful as he murmured, almost to himself. "The Longbottom's child is due soon as well. Could it possibly be one of them?" McGonagall caught the faint words and looked at him, puzzled by his sudden musing. "One of whom, Albus?" she asked, her voice curious but cautious, sensing there might be more to his thoughts. Dumbledore snapped back to the moment, and quickly waved his hand dismissively, a soft but distant smile on his face. "Oh, nothing, Minerva. You must be tired after today. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we have the Order of the Phoenix meeting in the usual place. There's much to address, especially with the Death Eaters becoming more active." McGonagall nodded, a slight frown on her face. "Understood, Albus. I'll see you tomorrow." As she left, Dumbledore stayed seated at his desk, deep in thought. The next day, Alex packed his things, said goodbye to Mother Triss and William at the orphanage, and set off alone for the Leaky Cauldron. When he arrived, Tom, the innkeeper, looked at him with surprise, eyebrows raised and eyes widening slightly. "You want to stay here alone until Hogwarts starts?" Tom asked, clearly taken aback, his voice holding a hint of worry. "Yes, Mr. Tom, don't worry about it. I've got enough money," Alex reassured him, pulling a few shiny gold galleons from his pocket to show he could pay for his stay. Tom's expression softened slightly, but he shook his head and sighed. "It's not just about the money, Mr. Wilson," he replied, his tone firm yet kind. "It's just not safe for a young lad like you to stay here alone. I have to think about your safety. I can't allow it, not for your own good." Tom's concern was evident in the way he looked at Alex, the lines on his face deepening as he considered the boy's request. Alex nodded, understanding Tom's concern. "I know it's dangerous, Mr. Tom. Professor McGonagall explained it to me yesterday, but I still feel safer here than in the Muggle world. I'd rather be somewhere with Aurors around than risk something happening in the orphanage." Tom raised an eyebrow, thinking it over. After a moment, he sighed. "All right, but I'll give you a discount, 5 galleons for the whole month and a half. But you have to promise you won't wander around at night. Curfew here is at 8 o'clock sharp. Be in your room by then." "Deal," Alex agreed, handing over the galleons. He took the room key and went upstairs with his things. The room was modest but cozy, with just enough space for his belongings. Alex set a small onion plant he'd brought on the windowsill along with some spices and a poker set William had gifted him. Once he unpacked, he looked around the room. There was space for basic exercises, but not enough for his usual martial arts routines. He could do some Tai Chi, but his punch and grapple techniques would be difficult here. With this in mind, Alex sat down and wrote a daily schedule. 6:30 a.m. Wake up, wash up, morning exercises, stretching, standing practice, aerobic training, and boxing. 7:30 a.m. Breakfast. 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Study and practice magic spells. 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch. 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. More studying and practicing magic. 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Dinner. 8 p.m. Evening exercises, boxing, standing practice, meditation. 9 p.m. Bedtime. He also planned to help Tom with chores during meal breaks to stay helpful and build a good rapport with him. With his schedule set, Alex realized it was almost noon. He headed downstairs for lunch. Seeing the limited menu of traditional British dishes, Alex asked Tom if he could use the kitchen. Tom, curious, allowed him, and Alex quickly made a few simple dishes with his own spices, inviting Tom to join him. They enjoyed the food together, and Tom was visibly impressed. Their earlier tensions eased, and by the end of lunch, they were on much friendlier terms. With lunch over, Alex was ready to dive into his magical studies. He started with 3 books: Standard Spells for Beginners, Magical Theory, and The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Defense. His first goal was to learn a few basic spells as quickly as possible. Transfiguration seemed too complex without guidance, so he decided to start with simpler spells he could use right away. As he flipped through the books, he marked important sections and made notes whenever something was unclear. Hours passed as he absorbed the material. The next morning, after breakfast, Alex was ready to try his first spell, the levitation charm. He had always been good at focusing, so he felt confident starting with something practical. Holding his wand, he pointed it at a book on the table. Wingardium Leviosa, he said, following the wand movements he had studied. Instantly, he felt an invisible force connect him, the wand, and the book. With a small effort, the book floated gently off the table. It felt natural. So this is what using a wand is, Alex muttered to himself. Satisfied with his progress, he put the wand down and tried to make the book float again without it, as he used to at the orphanage. But no matter how hard he concentrated, the book stayed firmly on the table. Strange, why can't I feel the same magic flow without the wand? Alex wondered aloud. Maybe the wand is more than just a tool for spells. He pondered about this for a while, trying to figure out how the wand interacted with his magic. Picking it up again, he cast the levitation charm a few more times, each time paying close attention to how the magic flowed from his body to the wand. He was studying the subtle shifts in power. After practicing, Alex set the wand down and stood still. He bent his knees slightly, relaxed, and cleared his mind. Instead of focusing on how he used to cast spells without a wand, he focused on recreating the magical flow he felt with it. Visualizing the path of magic as he felt it with the wand, he slowly opened his eyes, and to his surprise, the book floated gently before him, moving steadily through the air. I see, he said aloud, amazed at his realization. The wand doesn't just make spells easier, it makes the flow of magic more stable and controlled. My old way of using magic was too rough, so once I started using a wand, it didn't work the same without it. Without realizing it, Alex had discovered the secret of wandless and silent casting. His years of practicing his mental strength had made him more in tune with magic, allowing him to cast the levitation charm without a wand, something even skilled wizards struggled to achieve. Not only had Alex become proficient in the spell, but his years of discipline had also boosted the total amount and strength of his magic, making him stand out among others his age. Eager to consolidate what he'd learned, Alex spent the rest of the day practicing the charm in various ways, sometimes with his wand, sometimes without, sometimes saying the incantation aloud, and sometimes casting it silently. With each attempt, he felt his control and confidence growing. Just as he was about to continue practicing, his stomach growled loudly. Glancing at the window, he realized it was already evening. He'd completely missed lunch. Smiling to himself, he decided it was time to take a break and go downstairs for dinner. As Alex entered the leaky cauldron, Tom, the innkeeper, looked up from his newspaper and called out. Young man, you can't just hide away all day and skip meals. You didn't even come down for lunch. Alex chuckled, raising an eyebrow with a playful smirk. You're not mad that I missed cooking for you at noon, are you? Ever since he had cooked a meal for Tom the day before, Alex had taken over making their dinners. He'd even handled breakfast that morning, which Tom seemed more than happy to let him do. Tom grinned, crossing his arms as he leaned against the counter. Just worried you might end up starving yourself up there. Then you'd go blaming me for it. Alex laughed, feeling at ease with the innkeeper's teasing. Tom's warmth made him feel right at home, as though they'd known each other much longer. All right, Alex said with a smile. How about I make it up to you tonight with something extra special? Tom's eyes lit up. Now that sounds like a plan. Go on, then, show me what you've got, Chef Alex. With that, he headed into the kitchen and prepared a hearty dinner. The air filled with the rich aromas of roasted vegetables, tender meat, and fragrant spices. Tom even poured Alex a glass of butterbeer, a drink Alex was beginning to enjoy for its smooth, buttery flavor. As they ate, Alex's eyes drifted to the newspaper Tom had been reading, left open on the table with a headline in bold letters. Anything interesting in the news? Tom's expression turned grim. It's getting worse. That dark wizard, they call him you-know-who, and his Death Eaters attack the Ministry of Magic again. They say an aura was seriously hurt this time. It just feels like no one is safe anymore, and who knows how long we'll have to live with this fear hanging over us. Death Eaters. Alex noted the term in his mind, deciding he'd need to learn more about Voldemort's followers. After dinner, Alex waved his hand, and the empty dishes floated from the table, drifting into the kitchen sink with a soft clink. Tom's eyes widened in shock. Did you just, without a wand? Tom exclaimed, astonished. Even the levitation charm is difficult to cast without a wand, and here you are, doing it like it's nothing. Alex shrugged casually. That's what happens when you skip lunch and spend all day practicing. Tom just shook his head in disbelief as Alex headed back upstairs to continue his studies. Over the next few days, Alex threw himself into learning new spells. He practiced basic utility spells like Alohomora Unlocking Charm, Lumos Light Charm, and Scorchify Cleaning Charm, along with defensive spells like Protega Shield Charm, Impedimenta Impediment Jinx, and Expelliarmus Disarming Charm. Some were easy to pick up, while others took a bit longer. Tom, who had grown interested in Alex's magical studies, offered guidance when the instructions weren't clear, especially with tricky pronunciations which proved invaluable. Despite his rapid progress, only the levitation charm could reliably be cast without a wand. Alex suspected this was because of his years practicing mind control, which helped him with spells involving movement and lifting objects. He still felt he was on the right track and began drawing some conclusions. First, Alex realized the same spell could vary depending on who cast it. For instance, Tom's Lumos was far brighter than his own, thanks to Tom's experience and deeper knowledge of the spell. Second, he noticed that emotions and determination could impact a spell's strength. This insight came from one of Tom's lessons. The stronger your will or feelings, the more powerful the result. When Alex focused his emotions while casting Lumos, he saw a noticeable increase in brightness. He also learned that certain dark spells could influence a wizard's mood, deepening his understanding for the dangers of black magic. After thinking over everything he'd learned, Alex concluded that 3 main factors affected spellcasting: willpower, emotions, and skill level. Additionally, the amount and strength of a wizard's magic set a limit on how powerful their spells could become. With this understanding, Alex adjusted his training. His main priority was defense, so he decided to specialize in one strong defensive spell he could rely on. He narrowed it down to 3 spells: Impedimenta, Impediment, Jinx, Expelliarmus, Disarming Charm, and Protega, Shield Charm. After careful thought, he chose to focus on Impedimenta. It was a decision based on his old philosophy from his gaming days. He preferred to master one skill until it was overpowered. And here, in the magical world, he planned to do the same. Impedimenta was described in his textbook as an essential spell for any dueling wizard. It could slow an opponent or halt a magical creature's advance, acting as both a shield and a tactical tool. But when Alex began practicing it, he discovered it was much more versatile than the book suggested. When he cast the spell, an invisible barrier formed in front of him, solid like a wall. Its duration varied. Sometimes it held for 10 seconds, other times over a minute. What surprised Alex most was how the wall's density could change. By adjusting his magical power, he found it didn't always have to be solid. Sometimes, opponents could pass through, but it slowed them down as if they were moving through thick mud. The thicker the wall, the slower things moved through it. But there was more to it. If the spell created a solid wall, Alex realized it could be used as a shield. By pushing it toward an opponent with a burst of magic, it could also be turned into an attack. Without delay, Alex cast the Impedimenta spell again, this time in the open space of his room. First, I need to understand how this spell actually works, he murmured to himself. He moved closer to the invisible barrier, reaching out to touch it. His fingers met solid resistance, as if he were pressing against a perfectly smooth glass wall, though he couldn't see it. It's less than an inch thick but totally blocks anything from passing through either side, he noted, running his fingers along its surface. Let's test its strength, he thought. Alex picked up a dumbbell from his luggage and gave the barrier a solid hit. An odd sound filled the room, a mix of a dull thud and a soft splash, like hitting water's surface instead of something solid. Intrigued, he hit it a few more times, noticing the strange sound each time. It's definitely not metal or stone, more like solidified liquid, he observed, marveling at how strange it felt. Then, putting the dumbbell down, he tested the wall with his fists. After a few punches, something unusual happened, the wall began to soften. It didn't shatter like glass, instead, it turned pliable, almost rubbery. Interesting, Alex murmured, rubbing his sore knuckles. It gets softer after repeated hits. I wonder if that's because it's losing magic. After a few more strikes, Alex managed to punch through the softened wall. Although he pierced it, the spell was still there, making it tough to push through. He took a step back, then threw himself against the wall, slowly forcing his way through it. It's like moving through thick gel, but without the stickiness. This spell is really something, he said, grinning at the strange feeling. Once the spell's duration ended, the wall vanished. Alex quickly wrote down his observations in his notebook and recast the spell. Now, let's see how it handles magical attacks. Alex stepped back a few meters from the newly formed invisible wall. Raising his wand, he cast Expelliarmus, the disarming charm, at the barrier. To his surprise, the spell was blocked by the wall. The magic spread out across its surface and fizzled away. He tried again, casting spells from different angles. Sometimes the spell was absorbed, other times, it bounced off at a sharp angle. That's unexpected, Alex remarked, watching a spell deflect. If the spell hits straight on, it shatters. But if it hits at an angle, it deflects. That could come in handy during a duel. He spent the next hour testing different angles and types of attacks, making notes after each attempt. The more he experimented with Impedimenta, the more possibilities he saw. It wasn't just an obstacle, it could be a shield, a weapon, or even a tool for moving strategically. It's almost like a magic barrier I can shape however I want, Alex mused. I can make it solid or fluid or even turn it into something like magical quicksand. The name Impedimenta doesn't quite fit, it's more like a kind of magic shaping. Satisfied with his progress, Alex mapped out a plan for improvement. I need to focus on a few key areas, he thought. First, I'll work on casting it faster. If I can do it quickly, it'll be much more useful in a fight. Then, I'll practice controlling the wall's thickness and shape. I'll also see if I can improve my push, making it a real attack. With his plan in place, Alex dedicated the next 10 days to refining his technique. Each morning, he read his textbooks and learned new spells, but he spent every afternoon practicing Impedimenta. He also visited Flourish and Blots to buy more books on spellcasting but found them shockingly expensive, some cost more than alchemy items or potions. In the end, he bought 3 books: The 7 Ways of Casting a Spell by Barnabas Finkley, The Origin of the Spell, An Introduction to Ancient Runes, and Elegant Steps in a Duel Contest. Although he wanted more, he had to prioritize due to his limited funds. Still, Alex soaked up knowledge like a sponge. His magic grew stronger every day, and he knew his background and discipline gave him an edge over other students his age. One evening in early August, Alex stood in the small courtyard behind the leaky cauldron. He raised his wand, and with a sharp flick, a transparent cannonball made of magical energy shot from his wand. It hit a target made of stacked chairs, shattering it to pieces. He walked over to the scattered chairs, flicked his wand, and said, "Reparo." The chairs reassembled themselves as if nothing had happened. It's coming along nicely, Alex murmured. I've managed to shrink Impedimenta into a cannonball about the size of a wash basin. If I keep practicing, I might get it even smaller, maybe fist-sized. He smiled to himself, imagining what he could do once the spell was fully refined. His goal was clear. He would turn Impedimenta into a powerful weapon, like an air cannon, he could use for both attack and defense. Over the month, Alex had practiced his casting nearly 1,000 times. He trained daily, pushing himself until he was drained of both magic and strength. In terms of defense, Alex had made remarkable progress. He could now accurately place an invisible barrier wherever he wanted, solidifying it into a protective wall. He had also mastered a low-density deceleration shield, which could be quickly summoned as a transparent shield around him, about a meter in diameter, and moved with him as he walked. The best part, he could cast it without waiting for the spell to expire. He had learned to control its release and recall at will. Alright, that's enough for today, Alex said to himself, wiping the sweat from his forehead. I'm getting closer. With a bit more practice, I might be able to cast Protega, the shield charm, without a wand. He smiled, pleased with his progress. After finishing his practice, Alex started cleaning up the patio where he'd been training. Halfway through, he heard the wall creak and crack as someone opened the door to the leaky cauldron from Diagon Alley. A large, towering figure stepped through, a tall man with a thick beard, wrapped in a gray fur coat. His long, dark hair fell over his shoulders, and his steps were so heavy that the ground seemed to shake with each one. Mr. Hagrid, long time no see. What brings you over from Diagon Alley? Alex greeted the half-giant warmly. Business at the leaky cauldron had been slow, though a few patrons still came by daily, including patrolling Aurors who often stopped for a drink after their shift. Alex had gotten to know a few of them during his daily magic practice on the patio, and Hagrid, the groundskeeper at Hogwarts, was one of those familiar faces. Tom, the innkeeper, had introduced Hagrid to Alex, explaining that he was the keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts and also took care of the Forbidden Forest. He often came to the leaky cauldron either for a drink or to pick up supplies for the school. It's good to see ya, Alex. Hagrid boomed in his deep voice. I was just here helping a young muggle-born wizard get his school supplies. But as it turns out, his father's a squib, so he already knows Diagon Alley pretty well. Didn't really need my help, after all. Hagrid scratched his beard sheepishly. Alex tried not to laugh, realizing Hagrid had misunderstood his question. But, as usual, Hagrid was generous with the details. So, are you heading back to Hogwarts now? Alex asked, changing the subject. Hagrid shook his head. Nah, not yet. I've been in Diagon Alley since morning, helping the family, but they didn't need much. I ended up wandering over to Nocturne Alley, just poking around a bit. Didn't even realize it's nearly dinner time, and I haven't had a bite all day. Figured I'd stop in here for a drink. Alex chuckled. Hagrid's way of talking made it hard not to like him. What did you buy on your trip, Mr. Hagrid? That's quite a large package you're carrying. Hagrid grinned, patting the large bundle slung over his shoulder. Ah, this, you won't believe it. I got a whole pound of dragon liver. Got it for a steal. Can ya guess how much it cost? Nah, ya wouldn't believe it. Cheapest deal I've ever found. Dragon liver, that's amazing. Alex's curiosity sparked. I've never seen dragon liver before. Can I take a look? Of course, my friend. Hagrid said enthusiastically, unwrapping the bundle to reveal a piece of liver that was dark and rich in color, fresh and glistening as if just cut. My goodness, it looks like it's straight from the dragon. Alex examined it closely. What are you going to do with it? Use it for potions. Hagrid chuckled. Nah, I'm thinking of making a meat sauce. But it's such a fine piece, maybe I should try something special. Alex, his love for cooking kicking in, had an idea. How about I cook it for you? I could fry it with some spring onions. I think it would taste much better than meat sauce. What do you think? Hagrid looked surprised. You can cook, but you're only 11. Tom, who had been listening nearby, joined in. Oh, Hagrid, you've no idea. Alex's cooking is fantastic. I've been eating his meals for weeks now, and I've learned a thing or two just by watching him. If he ever wrote a magical recipe book, it'd sell out instantly. Since Alex had moved into the leaky cauldron, Tom hadn't had to pay for a single meal. Alex had taken over the kitchen, cooking dinner and sometimes breakfast for them both. Hagrid grinned. Well, if Tom says so, then let's do it. I'm up for trying anything new. Go on, Alex, let's see what ya can make. Alex eagerly took the dragon liver into the kitchen, realizing just how special this ingredient was. As he handled the liver, he could feel a faint warmth in it and noticed a strong, gamey scent. Hagrid mentioned that he'd bought it from a vendor in Nocturne Alley, which explained its freshness. Alex grabbed a handful of spring onions he had grown himself, sliced up the dragon liver, and marinated it with onions, ginger, soy sauce, and cooking wine. Once it was ready, he stir-fried the liver over high heat, keeping the flavors balanced. He prepared a few side dishes as well, knowing Hagrid's appetite would need more than one plate. As the smell of the cooked liver filled the air, Hagrid and Tom were practically drooling in anticipation, their eyes fixed on the steaming dish as Alex brought it to the table. Well, here it is, stir-fried dragon liver with spring onions. Give it a try, Alex said, setting the dish down. Hagrid wasted no time grabbing a forkful and taking a bite. His eyes lit up. Blimey, this is delicious. Best liver I've ever had. Alex took a bite as well, pleased with the result. The dragon liver had a unique taste, not quite like pork or lamb liver. It was rich yet tender, with a slight crunch on the outside and a melt-in-your-mouth texture inside. Tom, grinning, brought out a large bottle of red currant rum from his collection. This calls for a celebration. A meal like this deserves a good drink to go with it. They ate and drank together, laughing and sharing stories, while Hagrid and Tom praised Alex's cooking over and over. By the end of the night, Hagrid and Tom were rosy-cheeked and full, content from the delicious meal. As Hagrid leaned back in his chair, a bit tipsy from the rum, he raised his glass to Alex. You've got a real talent, lad. Best dragon liver I've ever had, and I've had quite a bit. After eating and drinking, Alex, Hagrid, and Tom kept chatting, and soon, the conversation turned to the topic of the Dark Lord and the Death Eaters. They're nothing but a pack of venomous snakes hiding in the shadows. They strike when you least expect it, but that's all they are, cowards, Hagrid said, his disdain for the Death Eaters clear in his voice. But things seem calm now, don't they? I haven't seen any news about the Death Eaters in the papers for a while, Alex said, noting Hagrid's fiery attitude. Hagrid burped loudly and shook his head. Don't let the quiet fool you. They've been lying low recently, but mark my words, they're up to something. Probably brewing some new conspiracy. But don't worry, we've got Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix. We'll win this war, you'll see. Alex frowned slightly, confused. Isn't the Ministry of Magic already fighting them? Why did Dumbledore set up the Order of the Phoenix? Wouldn't the Ministry see it as a private army and get suspicious? Hagrid leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper as if sharing a secret. You're right to wonder, lad. But here's the thing, there are plenty of people in the Ministry who secretly support you-know-who. The Ministry's full of people who either agree with his ideas or are too scared to stand up to him. You never know who's trustworthy. That's why Dumbledore created the Order, to fight the secret war that the Ministry can't handle. Some of the Aurors in the Ministry are part of the Order, too. Dumbledore always says, we fight the secret with the secret. Alex stared at Hagrid in disbelief. Is he really telling me all this so casually? It seemed that a little too much alcohol had loosened Hagrid's tongue, and he was revealing sensitive information without a second thought. Alex couldn't help but feel concerned for the Order's security, given how easily Hagrid was spilling its secrets. The conversation continued late into the night, with Hagrid and Tom finishing off the bottle of red currant rum between them. Eventually, Hagrid glanced at the clock, his eyes widening. Blimey, look at the time. I've gotta head back to Hogwarts. Past curfew already. Tom, who was also quite drunk, mumbled, how are you getting back, Hagrid? The Flow Network's been down here for a while now, thanks to those Death Eaters messing up the Ministry. The Department of Magical Transportation hasn't had the manpower to fix it yet. Hagrid rubbed his beard thoughtfully. That's right. Well, I could head to Nocturne Alley. Borgin and Burks always keep their flow open late, but that place deals in dark magic. Not the friendliest place to visit at night. Alex, seeing Hagrid's unsteady steps and slurred speech, felt uneasy about letting him go alone. Diagon Alley might have been calm lately, but Nocturne Alley was still dangerous. And, with the heat from the dragon liver and a bit of rum warming him up, Alex made a bold offer. I'll walk you there, Mr. Hagrid. Just to be safe. Hagrid, too tipsy to argue, nodded. Thanks, lad. That's mighty kind of ya. With Tom passed out at the bar, Alex and Hagrid left the Leaky Cauldron and walked down the quiet streets of Diagon Alley. The shops were closed for the night, their windows dark. As they neared Nocturne Alley, the air seemed to get colder, and the narrow streets became more shadowed and oppressive. They arrived at Borgin and Burks, a shop known for selling dangerous and dark magical artifacts. The storefront looked as eerie as ever, with dusty windows and strange objects peeking out from the dimly lit interior. As they stepped inside, the shopkeeper was nowhere to be seen. Alex glanced around, feeling a mix of fascination and caution as he took in the sight of various cursed objects, a mask with a terrifying grin, a shriveled hand, and a glass eyeball that seemed to follow him wherever he moved. Hagrid hiccuped and clapped Alex on the shoulder. Best not to touch anything in here, lad. Ya never know what curses might be on these things. He lumbered over to the fireplace, grabbed a handful of flow powder, and, after calling out, Hogsmeade, disappeared in a swirl of green flames. Left alone in the strange shop, Alex didn't linger. The place gave him the creeps, and he didn't want to tempt fate by sticking around. He quickly made his way toward the exit of Nocturne Alley. Just as he reached the end of the alley, a shadowy figure appeared out of nowhere, the telltale sign of someone apparating. Alex froze, his instincts kicking in. Something felt off. The figure stumbled through the alley, knocking over crates and barrels in a hurry. Whoever it was, they didn't notice Alex crouching behind a nearby pillar. The man was clearly being chased, his movements frantic as he fled deeper into the alley. Alex had barely caught his breath when, without warning, two more figures appeared in a swirl of black smoke. Dressed in black robes and wearing skull-like masks, they were unmistakably Death Eaters. One of them raised a wand and fired a spell at the fleeing man. The man, hearing the attack behind him, spun around and deflected the curse with his own wand, sending the spell crashing into a nearby barrel, which exploded into wooden splinters. Now, spells flew back and forth as the two Death Eaters and their target exchanged hexes in the narrow alley. Alex, still crouched behind his cover, cursed his luck. Why now? I should have known better than to wander around here at night. Stupid. He could hear the voices of the dueling wizards over the crackling spells. Snape, you can't hide behind that mask. I can smell your stink from miles away. Shouted the man with long black hair, his face set in a rebellious sneer. He was clearly mocking the Death Eater, laughing even as he dodged incoming curses. Sirius, you fool, think carefully about your last words because this time, I won't let you escape. The Death Eater sneered back. Alex's eyes widened in recognition. Sirius Black, he had heard the name Sirius before, and he was well known in the magical world. It seemed like he had stumbled right into a fight between a notorious Order of the Phoenix member and the Death Eaters. Stop talking and finish him. The second Death Eater growled, stepping back to prepare a more powerful spell. He muttered something under his breath, the tip of his wand glowing with dark energy. Alex's heart raced. He was trapped between the two Death Eaters and Sirius, with spells flying back and forth. I have to stay hidden. If I get caught in the middle of this, I'm as good as dead, he thought, taking deep breaths to calm himself. But then, the situation escalated. The second Death Eater raised his wand, preparing to unleash something far more dangerous. The dark glow on his wand grew brighter, and Alex knew that whatever was coming would end the fight, and possibly Sirius's life. I have to do something. He knew he couldn't just sit back and wait for the battle to end. It was unrealistic to expect the Death Eaters to leave without noticing him. Taking a deep breath, he seized the moment. Raising his wand, Alex silently cast a powerful impedimenta, aiming it like an invisible cannonball at one of the Death Eaters. The jinx flew toward Avery, one of the two dark wizards attacking Sirius Black. Avery, caught off guard, had been preparing a stronger curse to take down Sirius. The sudden attack from behind startled him so much that he abandoned his spell and reflexively cast a shield charm to block Alex's jinx. In his confusion, Avery wildly fired a curse back in Alex's direction but struggled to see where the attack had come from. Alex moved swiftly. He had already anticipated a counterattack. Ducking low, he closed the gap between them, using the element of surprise. With a quick sweep of his leg, Alex knocked Avery's wand out of his hand, sending it clattering to the ground. Avery barely had time to react before Alex delivered a sharp kick to his midsection, causing him to double over in pain. Oof, Avery groaned as the air left his lungs, his body folding forward from the blow. But Alex wasn't done. With a fluid motion, he stepped in and grabbed Avery's head, slamming his knee into the Death Eater's face with a sickening thud. Blood spurted from Avery's nose as he fell backward, unconscious before he hit the ground. It had all happened in the blink of an eye. Alex's training paid off. His precise, calculated movements had taken down Avery before the man had a chance to fight back. Quickly regaining his focus, Alex turned his attention to Snape, the other Death Eater. He raised his wand and fired a compressed version of impedimenta at Snape, who was still dueling Sirius. Snape, always sharp in battle, noticed the incoming spell just in time. He blocked a hex from Sirius with one hand and spun around, casting Sectum Sempra. The curse sliced through the air like a blade, cutting through Alex's jinx as if it were nothing. Alex's eyes widened. What kind of spell is that? He muttered to himself. Realizing the danger, he immediately conjured a shield using Protega to block Snape's deadly curse. But Sectum Sempra was too powerful. Alex watched in horror as his shield began to crack under the pressure, the curse slowly cutting through it. Just as Alex was about to dodge out of the way, a bright flash of silver light erupted from his body. A glowing shield formed around him, and within it, the shimmering figure of a silver-white doe appeared. The doe blocked Snape's curse completely, protecting Alex from harm. Snape's expression changed for a moment when he saw the Patronus-like shield. His eyes flickered with emotion, but he said nothing. Instead, he shot one final curse at Sirius, then quickly moved to Avery's unconscious body, grabbed him, and disappeared with a loud crack as he apparated away. Alex let out a shaky breath, the tension finally leaving his body. That was too close, he muttered. His heart was pounding. Is this what dueling adults feels like? He thought. If not for that mysterious shield, he might not have survived. Remembering the shield, Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out the small copper token that Lily Potter had given him. The once shining surface was now dull and lifeless. So this really was a protective charm. It saved my life. While Alex was still recovering from the shock, Sirius Black approached, his face full of curiosity and concern. Alex quickly raised his wand in defense, unsure of the man's intentions. Whoa there, kid, no need to be jumpy. I'm not one of them, Sirius said, raising his hands in surrender. You were the one who helped me back there, weren't you? Alex kept his wand pointed at Sirius but relaxed slightly. I only managed to catch one of them by surprise, he replied cautiously, still wary of Sirius. Sirius chuckled, clearly impressed. You did more than that, kid. You took that guy down with 3 moves. I saw the whole thing. I'm Sirius Black, by the way. You can just call me Sirius. I got lucky, Alex replied, lowering his wand further. It was the other one, the man you called Snape, who almost got me. Are you an Auror or part of the Order of the Phoenix? Sirius raised an eyebrow. You know about the Order of the Phoenix? Well, yeah, I'm part of the Order. It's not much a secret these days, he said with a smirk. But you, what's your name? You're a bit young to be handling Death Eaters like that. Alex Wilson, he answered. Now more relaxed, Alex couldn't help but smile. I've just been practicing a lot, I guess. And I got lucky that the man you called Snape didn't keep attacking me. Wilson, huh, well, you've got some serious guts for a kid. The protective spell you used back there, that was no ordinary magic. I've never seen a student cast something like that. That wasn't me, Alex admitted. He held up the copper charm. Lily Potter gave me this. She told me it was a good luck charm, but it turned out to be something more. Lily, Sirius's eyes widened. You know Lily Potter, how'd you come across her? I met her when I came to Diagon Alley to get my school supplies, Alex explained. She and her husband, James, were shopping, and she gave me this charm. I didn't know it would actually protect me like that. Sirius laughed warmly. That sounds like Lily. She and James are my closest friends. They're good people, the best I know. His tone softened, and there was a hint of fondness in his voice. Since you know them, I guess we can call ourselves friends, too, Sirius said with a grin. You're just starting at Hogwarts, aren't you? Hard to believe a first year like you just took on a Death Eater. Yeah, I haven't even started yet, Alex admitted, feeling a bit self-conscious. But I've been practicing a lot, and I guess tonight it paid off. Before they could continue their conversation, the sound of several loud cracks filled the air as more people appeared in the alley. Sirius's expression turned serious as he looked around. Looks like we're not alone anymore. Little Sirius, what's the situation? There was a magical disturbance here just now, so I came quickly. The voice came from the leader of the group that had just arrived. He was leaning on a cane, his face heavily scarred, and his appearance was rather unsettling. One of his eyes was covered with a magical eye that moved independently, scanning the scene in all directions. It was none other than Mad-Eye Moody, the famous Auror. Alex glanced at the new arrivals and quickly deduced that they were likely Aurors. He couldn't help but think sarcastically, took them long enough to get here. Seeing the new arrivals, Sirius led Alex over to meet them. It was 2 Death Eaters, Snape and Avery. I know them well, but unfortunately, they were both masked, so there's no way to officially accuse them. Those 2 scoundrels had been tailing me, and I ended up in Nocturne Alley. If it weren't for Alex here, I might not have lasted until you arrived, Sirius explained with a wry smile before introducing everyone. Mad-Eye, this here is Alex Wilson, a little wizard I just met. He's the one who took down Avery, kicked his backside quite thoroughly. And would you believe it, he's just about to start at Hogwarts. Sirius grinned at Alex proudly. Moody's magical eye focused on Alex, looking him over thoroughly. Boy, you've done a brave thing, but situations like this are no place for an underage wizard. Don't be so reckless next time. If you'd gotten hurt, your family would have been devastated. Mr. Moody, I understand. I won't act rashly again. Alex agreed, although he couldn't help but think, if you Aurors had arrived sooner, I wouldn't have needed to step in at all. But he didn't argue and kept his thoughts to himself. Moody grunted in response, accepting Alex's promise. All right, I'll overlook the fact that you were casting spells outside of school grounds this time. I'll follow up with Sirius on the details. Frank, see to it that he gets home safely. Alex looked up and said, Mr. Moody, I'm an orphan. I'm staying at the Leaky Cauldron for now. I can find my own way back. Moody paused for a moment, seeming to take in Alex's situation before nodding. All right, but Frank, you still make sure he gets back safe. He gestured to Frank Longbottom, one of the other Aurors. Alex shrugged and followed Frank out of the alley without complaint, feeling more exhausted than anything after the night's events. What a night of bad luck, he thought to himself. As they were leaving, Sirius called out, thanks again, Alex. I'll stop by to visit when I can. Alex waved back, feeling slightly embarrassed by Sirius's loud goodbye. Does he have to shout like that in the middle of the night? Once back at the Leaky Cauldron, Alex thanked Frank for escorting him and headed straight to his room. As he lay down, the events of the night played through his mind on repeat. The Death Eaters are no joke. That spell Snape used, it was terrifying. The power behind it broke through 2 of my obstruction jinxes like they were nothing. I need to work on strengthening my magic. My practice isn't enough if I want to survive against people like that. Alex made a firm decision right then and there. He wouldn't be leaving the leaky cauldron until school started. He planned to train rigorously, using every moment to improve his skills. With that thought in mind, he pulled out the copper amulet that had saved his life. He stared at the now dull piece of metal and felt a surge of gratitude toward Lily Potter. I need to thank her properly for this. The next day, Alex wrote a letter to Lily, thanking her for the life-saving gift. A few days later, Lily wrote back, thrilled that her experimental amulet had worked so well. In her letter, she explained that the amulet was a practice piece she had made to test some of her alchemy skills. She was overjoyed that it had proven so effective. Alex couldn't help but feel a bit surprised at how casually she had given him such a powerful item. Who just hands out experimental magic like that? He wondered. Still, his curiosity got the better of him, and he asked Lily more about how the amulet worked. To his delight, Lily explained the basic principles behind its magic. The amulet, she explained, had 2 key enchantments. The first was a stress-activated charm that would trigger automatically if the wearer was in danger. The second was a protective shield spell, something Lily had developed with her own unique understanding of magical defense. She mentioned learning the technique from an old book at Hogwarts and offered to tell Alex more when they were at school. Meanwhile, Sirius also kept in touch, though not as frequently. One day, Alex received a package from Sirius. Inside were 200 gold galleons, along with a note thanking him for his help during the Nocturne Alley encounter. Sirius, in typical fashion, had written, I could have handled them myself, but I appreciate the backup. Alex couldn't help but smile. This guy loves to play the hero, he thought. His impression of Sirius had improved, though. The man was generous, and despite his bravado, he was genuinely thankful. Still, 200 galleons felt like an excessive reward. But knowing Sirius, Alex decided it was best not to argue. He wrote back, thanking him for the gift and keeping up correspondence, even if Sirius's letters were filled with bragging and tales of his own daring adventures. Time passed quickly, and soon, it was time for Alex to head to Hogwarts. Over the past month, he had made tremendous progress in his studies and training, pushing himself hard to master the spells in the beginner's spellbook as well as several defensive spells. He had even begun studying transfiguration, herbology, and potions, though he knew these subjects would need more hands-on guidance at school. On the day of his departure, Alex packed his luggage, said his goodbyes to Tom, the innkeeper, and headed for King's Cross Station. Tom, who had grown fond of Alex during his stay, gifted him a small barrel of butterbeer as a parting gift. Alex, in return, left Tom a few simple recipes, including one for fried chicken, which earned him a warm, fatherly smile from the old man. Arriving early at King's Cross Station, Alex pushed his trolley loaded with luggage to the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. There were Aurors stationed around the area, likely to prevent any muggles from wandering through by mistake. After checking that no one was watching him too closely, Alex took a deep breath and pushed his trolley through the barrier. On the other side, the Hogwarts Express sat waiting on the platform, its dark red steam engine ready to take students to school. The platform wasn't crowded yet. It was only a little after 9 a.m., and the train wouldn't depart until 11. Alex picked a random carriage, levitated his luggage inside with a flick of his wand, and settled into an empty compartment. He placed his owl, Tailwind, on the table and watched as the sleepy bird continued to doze in its cage. Shaking his head with a smile, Alex opened his book, Basic Transfiguration Guide, to review the material. An hour passed quietly. The platform outside grew busier as more students arrived with their families. Then, a knock came at the door of his compartment. Is anyone sitting here? A young girl asked, pointing to the seat opposite Alex. She looked about his age, with long brown hair and light green eyes. There was a hint of nervousness in her expression. No, feel free to sit, Alex replied, offering her a kind smile. I'm Alex Wilson. Need help with your luggage? He asked, noticing that she was struggling with her heavy suitcase. The girl nodded gratefully. I'm Vivian Bulstrode, but just call me Vivian, she said as she stepped aside. With a wave of his hand, Alex levitated her suitcase into the luggage rack with ease. Wow, that was cool. You didn't even use your wand, Vivian exclaimed, clearly impressed. Are you a senior? I'm a first year, heading to Hogwarts for the first time. Alex chuckled. Actually, I'm a first year too. I've just had some practice with magic before starting school. Vivian's eyes widened. You're really good. I thought only older students could cast spells like that. What family are you from? I don't recognize the name Wilson. Alex shrugged. I'm an orphan, raised in the Muggle world. No connections to any pure blood families. Vivian looked surprised. Really, you don't seem like a Muggle born at all with how well you use magic. My grandfather's a squib, she continued excitedly. He was expelled from the Bulstrode family, but when I got my Hogwarts letter, we were welcomed back. He was so proud. Alex raised an eyebrow. Your family kicked your grandfather out, and now he's happy to go back. Doesn't that bother you? Vivian shrugged. He's happy because he hates being a squib. To him, being back in the Bulstrode family is a big deal. They're one of the sacred 28 pure blood families, after all. Alex didn't fully understand her pride in returning to a family that had cast out her grandfather, but he let it go. Everyone had their own views on family, after all. Just then, there was a commotion on the platform outside. Alex leaned toward the window. What's going on out there? He asked. Vivian poked her head out of the window to take a look. Looks like an argument. I think it's the Travers and McKinnon families. I've seen them at family gatherings. When she pulled her head back in, her hair was windswept and a bit messy. She grinned. I heard that the McKinnon family thinks someone in the Travers family is a Death Eater. They've been at each other's throats ever since an Auror from the McKinnon family got hurt by one of the Travers Death Eaters. Alex blinked in surprise. How do you know all this? Vivian puffed out her chest, looking smug. Since we rejoined the Bulstrode family, I've been to a lot of gatherings. You hear a lot of stories after dinner. Let me tell you, the pure blood families have a lot of secrets. Alex couldn't help but laugh inwardly. She likes to gossip. The two continued to watch the commotion outside the train window. Do you think they'll fight? Vivian asked Alex, her eyes gleaming with excitement. I doubt it, Alex replied, pointing to the Aurors who had already arrived. They're here to maintain order. It'll probably get stopped before anything serious happens. Sure enough, the Aurors quickly intervened, separating the two groups who had been arguing and looked ready to come to blows. Huh, I was hoping for a good fight. What a letdown, Vivian said with a disappointed sigh, leaning back from the window with a bored expression. Alex couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Watching her, he felt like he was seeing a person who enjoyed sitting back, eating popcorn, and watching other people's drama, completely detached from the situation. She's like one of those people who just love to watch things unfold from the sidelines, he thought. Vivian turned to him, changing the subject. Which house do you think we'll be sorted into? My family's always been in Slytherin, so I'm guessing I'll end up there too. I don't really care, but I'd like to be in Ravenclaw. I heard they have their own library, and it seems like a good place for quiet study, Alex replied. He'd done his homework about the Hogwarts houses and thought Ravenclaw suited him best. Vivian laughed. Yeah, I figured you for a Ravenclaw. The moment I saw you, you were reading. I've heard Ravenclaw's full of smart students. Alex chuckled. If you end up in Slytherin, just be careful. Things are pretty chaotic in the magical world right now, and I've heard a lot of those who follow the Dark Lord are from Slytherin. Vivian waved her hand dismissively. It's not that bad. Plenty of Slytherins are neutral. Like my family, they don't think the Dark Lord can actually win. They think his ideas are too extreme. Is it because of Dumbledore? Alex asked. I've heard he's the greatest wizard of our time. Vivian shrugged. That's part of it, but it's more about the Dark Lord's pure blood obsession. He wants to get rid of wizards with Muggle blood, but a lot of pure blood families have business dealings with Muggles, and, well, she leaned in and lowered her voice, many pure blood families have married into Muggle families at some point. If they didn't, the family line would die out. Alex nodded thoughtfully. He had considered this before. It made sense. If pure blood families only married each other, they would eventually run into problems with inbreeding, leading to health and mental issues. Just don't say that out loud if you end up in Slytherin. They might not like hearing it, Alex warned with a slight grin. Don't worry, I'm not stupid, Vivian said with a smirk. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door of their compartment. Hey, mind if I join you? All the other compartments are full, said a boy standing at the door with a friendly smile. He rubbed the back of his head nervously. Of course, come on in. There's plenty of room, Alex replied, gesturing to the empty seats. I'm Alex Wilson, and this is Vivian Bulstrode. I'm Charles McKinnon, the boy introduced himself with a shy smile. Charles was taller than Alex, though a bit thin. Vivian gave Alex a meaningful look when she heard the name, clearly recognizing it from their earlier conversation. She raised an eyebrow as if to say, that's the McKinnon I was talking about. Alex smiled back at her but kept things polite. He helped Charles with his luggage, and soon enough, Vivian started chatting with him. Luckily, the conversation stayed light, and she didn't mention the tension between their families. Alex had been a bit worried that she'd bring it up, which would have made things awkward very quickly. As they settled in, Vivian pulled out a copy of the Daily Prophet and began reading aloud. Have you guys heard? They say Harold Mincham, the current Minister of Magic, is about to step down. People are saying he hasn't done enough besides putting more Dementors around Azkaban. The Dark Lord is getting stronger, and Death Eaters are causing chaos everywhere. They even attacked Sirius Black in Diagon Alley last month. Technically, it was Nocturne Alley. Charles frowned. It's about time for a change. The Ministry's just reacting to attacks instead of stopping them. Those Death Eaters are a menace, he said, his previous shyness gone as his anger rose. Alex, sensing Charles's frustration, added calmly, don't worry. They won't be causing trouble for much longer. He didn't remember much of the plot of Harry Potter, but he knew one thing for certain, Voldemort would soon fall after Harry was born. Charles gave a weak smile, clearly comforted by Alex's words. I hope you're right. My family's been fighting against you-know-who for years. Several of my relatives have joined the Aurors. My uncle was attacked by Death Eaters not long ago, one of them broke his leg. He's still at St. Mungo's hospital. We're sure one of the Death Eaters was Travers, but the Ministry won't investigate without solid proof. It's infuriating. Vivian's eyes widened in shock. That's awful. Didn't your uncle see who attacked him? Alex stepped in to explain. Many Death Eaters wear masks when they attack. It's hard to recognize them even if you see them. Charles nodded. Exactly. My uncle's sure it was Travers, but without evidence, the Ministry won't take action. As the conversation shifted to complaints about the Ministry of Magic, Alex realized just how fractured the magical world was. There were different opinions even within the Ministry itself, which was likely contributing to its inaction against the Death Eaters. Before long, the Hogwarts Express began to move. The train's finally off, Vivian said, settling into her seat. I heard it takes several hours to get there. Alex was puzzled. Several hours. Why does it take so long? The magical world has so many ways to travel faster. Why are we using a slow, old-fashioned train? Vivian shrugged, looking equally curious. That's a good question. I've wondered the same thing. Why don't they just use magic to get us there faster? Charles, who seemed more informed, chimed in. There's an enchantment on the train. It's supposed to give new students time to get to know each other and build excitement for Hogwarts. Plus, it's a tradition. They've been using this train for decades, if not longer. Alex nodded thoughtfully. I see. So it's more about tradition than anything else. I heard that wizards used to travel to Hogwarts in their own way. Some rode broomsticks, others used flow powder to go straight to Hogsmeade, Charles McKinnon explained, leaning back in his seat. But after the International Statute of Secrecy came into effect in 1692, they had to stop all that. Too many wizards were being spotted by muggles, and it put a lot of pressure on the Ministry of Magic to cover things up. Well, since we have plenty of time on the train, how about I teach you a game? Alex suggested, a sly grin forming on his face. Sure, I'm up for anything, Charles replied, his earlier serious demeanor vanishing at the mention of games. Is it wizard chess or gobstones? Alex shook his head. No, it's a game from my homeland. Usually, it's played with 4 people, but 3 can play too. I'll teach you. Alex reached into his luggage and pulled out a deck of cards, carefully placing it on the table in front of them. He had a feeling that once they got into the game, they wouldn't be able to resist its charm. But wait, I still need a proper table, Alex muttered to himself. His transfiguration skills weren't perfect yet, but he knew enough to manage a solution. He pointed his wand at the small table by the window and cast an Engorgio spell, extending the table just enough for their game. That should do it, he said with satisfaction. Alex began explaining the basics of the game to Vivian and Charles. His teaching experience at the orphanage came in handy, and he quickly laid out the rules in simple terms. Alright, let's play a couple of rounds so you can get the hang of it, Alex said. These cards look confusing, Vivian admitted, frowning as she studied them. Are you sure it's fun? You'll get the hang of it, Charles said, clearly intrigued. Let's give it a try. With that, the three of them gathered around the table, Vivian and Charles sitting on chairs while Charles pulled a suitcase into the aisle to sit on. They began playing under Alex's guidance, slowly learning the strategy and excitement of poker. After about half an hour, both Vivian and Charles had picked up the basic gameplay. They each managed to win a round, thanks to Alex letting them win to make sure they fully understood the game. Haha, I won again. This is actually pretty fun, Vivian exclaimed, putting her card forward triumphantly, her earlier confusion replaced by excitement. Let's make it more interesting, Charles suggested, grinning. Whoever lost the most by the time the snack trolley comes around has to buy the snacks. Vivian's eyes lit up. I'm in. I feel like my luck is pretty good right now. Alex chuckled to himself. They're feeling confident now, but I'll show them soon enough, he thought, ready to bring them back to reality with a few well-placed wins. The next few rounds started, and the game picked up in intensity. After a while, there was a knock at the compartment door. The three looked over to see the snack trolley had arrived, pushed by a middle-aged woman offering a variety of magical treats. At this point, Alex was in a sour mood. He had been losing for the past few rounds despite planning to teach them a lesson in the game. Alright, Alex, you've lost the most, so it's your turn to buy the snacks, Vivian teased, her eyes gleaming with playful mischief. Yeah, Alex muttered, taking out his wallet. How is your luck so good? He begrudgingly bought an assortment of snacks for the three of them. As they dug into their treats, Charles handed Alex a small candy. Try this Birdie Bot's every flavor bean. It has all kinds of flavors, some are really good, others, not so much. Alex popped the candy into his mouth and immediately regretted it. He grimaced, nearly spitting it out. Earwax. Vivian and Charles burst into laughter, clearly amused by his misfortune. Yeah, that happens, Charles chuckled. Some of the flavors are a bit unpleasant. Alex shook his head and quickly switched to a chocolate frog, which was much more tolerable. As he unwrapped the frog, he found a collectible card inside featuring Hengist of Woodcroft, the founder of Hogsmeade. As he nibbled on the chocolate, Alex glanced out the window, feeling a growing sense of excitement for the magical world that awaited him at Hogwarts. The three continued snacking and chatting. Vivian rambled on about her family's background and their connections, barely pausing to breathe. Her constant chatter had Alex's ears nearly ringing, but he smiled and nodded politely. From his perspective, someone with a high emotional intelligence might describe Vivian as full of energy, while others might just call her overbearing. Either way, she was friendly and engaging, which made the trip more lively. Charles, on the other hand, relaxed more as the journey went on. His shyness gave way to enthusiasm as he explained Quidditch to Alex and Vivian, particularly after learning that neither of them was well versed in the magical sport. He delved into the rules, explaining the different positions, seeker, chaser, beater, and keeper, and even listed some of the most famous Quidditch teams and players from around the world. Alex listened with mild curiosity, though he found the sport rather brutal. He couldn't help but think, how does a world with such advanced magic still have such a savage sport? Some of the fouls Charles described, like being knocked unconscious by a bludger, sounded more like dangerous accidents than sport. As the train continued its journey toward Hogwarts, Alex leaned back, taking in the lively atmosphere around him. He had started the trip with the intention of quietly reading, but now he was glad to have spent the time bonding with his new companions. Though the magical world had its strange mix of charm and danger, he felt a growing sense of belonging, and that was enough to keep him looking forward to what lay ahead. In 5 minutes, the train will arrive at Hogwarts. Please leave your luggage on the train. Someone will take care of delivering it to the school, the voice over the intercom announced. Finally, Charles exclaimed as he stood up, stretching his arms. I've been sitting so long I can barely feel my legs. Alex packed up the cards and the leftover snacks. The train slowed to a halt, and the three of them made their way outside, where the sky had already begun to darken. At the station, a large figure holding a lantern called out, First years. First-year students over here. Everyone's attention shifted toward Hagrid's booming voice. Alex, Charles, and Vivian made their way toward him. Hagrid, long time no see, Alex greeted with a smile as they approached. Oh, Alex, good to see ya, lad. Hagrid beamed, but his expression quickly shifted to one of guilt. I heard about what happened back in Nocturne Alley. I should have been more careful, I shouldn't have let. It's all right, Hagrid, Alex interrupted, trying to keep things light. It wasn't your fault, I was a bit careless myself, but look, I'm perfectly fine now. He didn't want to talk about it, especially not with so many first-year students gathering around. He also didn't want to draw attention to any Death Eater connections or the trouble that could arise from that. Hagrid, however, seemed unable to let it go. I still feel awful about it, Alex. Headmaster Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall gave me a right scolding. I haven't been allowed to go to Diagon Alley since, not after what happened to you. Alex, trying to steer the conversation away from that night, said with a weak smile, don't worry about it, Hagrid. I'm just excited to be starting at Hogwarts. Shouldn't you be congratulating me? Hearing this, Hagrid's face brightened. Congratulations, Alex. You're gonna love Hogwarts, just wait. As they were talking, Charles and Vivian couldn't help but grow curious. They had caught bits of the conversation about a dangerous incident but didn't want to pry just yet. They exchanged a glance, silently agreeing to ask Alex about it later when the timing was better. Suddenly, a loud, obnoxious voice cut through the crowd. Oi, big guy, are you just gonna stand there, or are you gonna get a move on? My legs are about to give out. The voice belonged to a smug-looking boy with dark hair and a sneering expression. He didn't care that Hagrid had been mid-conversation, he was focused entirely on himself. Alex felt a flash of irritation at the boy's rudeness. He turned and gave him a hard stare. The boy, undeterred, noticed Alex's look and sneered even more. What are you looking at? The boy snapped. I'm talking to this oaf over here, not you. Before Alex could respond, Charles stepped in, his face tense with anger. Back off, Travers, keep running your mouth, and you'll regret it. The boy, now identified as Samport Travers, smirked. Oh, it's you, McKinnon. Still letting your family's name drag you around. Tell me, did you cry like a baby when your uncle got hurt? You should have stayed home with the other weaklings. Charles clenched his fists, ready to lunge at Travers, but Alex stepped between them, placing a hand on Charles's shoulder. Don't let him get to you, Charles, Alex said quietly. He's trying to provoke you on purpose. Stay calm. Just then, Hagrid stepped in, his massive frame blocking the confrontation. No fighting outside the school grounds. If you want to start anything here, I've got the right to send you home straight away. Then you'll have to explain why you missed your first year at Hogwarts. The threat of being sent home seemed to work. Travers, though still smirking, backed off slightly, muttering under his breath, HMPH, guess I'll let you off this time, McKinnon. But don't think this is over. Charles scowled as Travers walked away, but Alex pulled him aside and whispered, that guy's just looking for trouble. You did the right thing by not giving in. If you had attacked him, you could have been expelled before even starting your first day. You're right, I almost lost my temper. Thanks, Alex, Charles said, taking a deep breath to calm himself. Vivian, who had watched the whole exchange with wide eyes, chimed in, that Travers kid is bad news. He's from a family that supports the Dark Lord. Hogwarts really shouldn't let people like him in. His family may support you-know-who, but that doesn't mean the school can refuse him. As long as he's got magical talent, he's allowed to attend, Alex said, though he agreed that Travers seemed like trouble. With the confrontation diffused, the three of them followed Hagrid and the other first years along a winding path. After a short walk, they arrived at the edge of a large, dark lake. On the other side of the water stood the grand, towering silhouette of Hogwarts Castle, illuminated by the faint glow of lanterns. Wow, Vivian whispered in awe, her eyes wide as she took in the sight of the castle. Charles and Alex, equally struck by the beauty of Hogwarts, stared silently at the impressive view. There she is, Hogwarts, Hagrid called out with pride. We'll be talking boats across the lake to get there. No more than 4 to a boat. Come on, first years, follow me. Alex, Vivian, and Charles quickly found a boat and climbed in, their excitement growing as they neared the legendary school. The cool breeze off the lake ruffled their robes, and the gentle rocking of the boat added to the feeling of anticipation. As the small group of first-year students stepped into their boats, Alex, Charles, Vivian, and Oriana settled into the same boat. Under Hagrid's booming instructions, each boat gently glided across the calm surface of the lake. Alex couldn't help but notice the boat seemed to move with minimal effort on his part, enchanted to follow a magical path toward the towering Hogwarts castle. Vivian began to chat nervously, sharing rumors she'd heard. You know, the 4 in each boat are supposed to represent the founders of Hogwarts, she whispered, eyes sparkling with excitement. Alex glanced at the looming castle ahead, listening as she continued, the journey across the lake is a tradition, like retracing the steps of the founders when they built the school. The view of Hogwarts drew closer, the castle appearing more magnificent with each passing moment, illuminated by the glow of the moon. It stood on a cliff, proud and unyielding, with its countless towers reaching toward the sky. Everyone off, Hagrid called, guiding the group onto the shore. The first-year students stepped off the boats, awestruck by the imposing grandeur of the castle, now in full view. They followed Hagrid along a steep path that wound up the cliffside, huffing and puffing as they climbed. When they finally reached the top, Hogwarts loomed even larger, its stone walls seeming to stretch endlessly toward the heavens. As they entered the great entrance hall, Alex felt a chill of excitement. Standing tall and stern at the top of the steps was a middle-aged witch dressed in dark green robes, Professor McGonagall. Her gaze swept over the students before settling on Alex. She gave him a brief glare, clearly having heard of his earlier mischief. Alex chuckled inwardly but straightened his back to avoid drawing more attention. Welcome to Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall began, her voice sharp but inviting. Before we begin the opening feast, each of you will be sorted into your house. Your house will be like your family for the rest of your time at Hogwarts. Work hard and win points, and your house could win the coveted house cup at the end of the year. The students shifted nervously, some whispering amongst themselves about the sorting ceremony. Alex noticed Vivian looking particularly anxious. Do you think it's an exam? She whispered to Alex, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her robe. I didn't study at all over the summer. Alex smiled, shaking his head. I'm sure it won't be that bad, he said, trying to calm her nerves. Soon enough, Professor McGonagall led the group into the Great Hall, and the first-year students gasped in unison. The ceiling seemed to stretch endlessly, mimicking the night sky filled with stars. Hundreds of floating candles illuminated the hall, casting a warm, magical glow. 4 long tables were filled with students from the upper years, all of them staring curiously at the new arrivals. At the front of the hall sat the famous sorting hat, worn and old, resting on a chair. As they gathered before it, the hat began to sing, its tune off-key but brimming with ancient magic. One by one, the students were called forward, placed under the hat, and sorted into their houses. When Oriana, the girl who had shared the boat with them, was called, she nervously approached the chair. After a brief pause, the sorting hat declared her a Ravenclaw, earning cheers from the table of blue-clad students. Vivian's turn came next, her face tightened with anticipation as the hat was placed on her head. Slytherin, it shouted, and she walked over to the green and silver table, flashing Alex a nervous grin. Charles was next, and to no one's surprise, the sorting hat quickly placed him in Gryffindor, the house of the brave. Alex could only chuckle at how perfectly his friends fit their houses. Finally, it was Alex's turn. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on him as Professor McGonagall placed the sorting hat on his head. His mind raced for a moment, wondering what house would suit him best. Alex walked confidently up to the front of the hall. His steps resounded in the silence as all eyes followed him. He sat on the chair and let Professor McGonagall place the sorting hat gently on his head. The hat slipped down over his eyes, blocking the view of the hundreds of students now staring at him, but Alex's thoughts were racing. The sorting hat, seemingly talking to itself, murmured, "Interesting, very interesting. Serious, disciplined, with a strong sense of honor and an endless thirst for knowledge. Yet, you question rules, don't you? You have the makings of greatness, not unlike others I've seen before. But you're not quite like a typical first year, why so mature in your thinking?" Alex, fascinated by the hat's ability to probe his thoughts, couldn't help but wonder how it worked. Can this thing really read my mind? What kind of enchantment could give an object such awareness? His curiosity about the hat's construction and its alchemical properties grew, and he began to ponder what it would take to take it apart and understand it. "Put those thoughts away, young man," the sorting hat snapped, offended by his curiosity. The hat's scolding only fueled Alex's desire to explore its workings. "So it can respond to my thoughts, fascinating. Is it a sentient object or something else entirely? Could it be the result of someone embedding a soul in an item?" "Enough," the sorting hat, clearly exasperated, cut in. "You've got potential, but let's see where you belong." There was a brief pause before it shouted for the whole hall to hear, "Slytherin." Alex blinked, slightly surprised. He hadn't expected that, though he quickly shrugged it off. The hat had made its choice. His robe's trim changed color, emerald green and silver replacing the plain black, and the Slytherin crest appeared proudly on his chest. As he rose to join his new housemates, he caught a glimpse of the sorting hat, which seemed to glare back at him, almost as if holding a grudge. Charles and Vivian, seated at their respective tables, looked shocked. Alex could see it on their faces. They hadn't imagined him being sorted into Slytherin. But Alex remained unbothered, casually striding over to the Slytherin table. He took a seat beside Vivian, who had been sorted into Slytherin earlier. "Welcome, Alex Wilson," a confident voice greeted him. A girl with long dark brown hair and sharp eyes extended her hand. "I'm Vanessa Greengrass, Slytherin's prefect. It's good to have you with us." "Pleasure to meet you, Prefect Greengrass," Alex responded, shaking her hand with a polite nod. "You can call me Alex." Vivian, who had been sitting nearby, leaned over excitedly. "I can't believe it. I thought you'd go to Ravenclaw for sure," she said, her voice filled with surprise. Alex shrugged nonchalantly. "It doesn't matter where I ended up. Though, I think the hat might have had a personal issue with me." He smirked, recalling the hat's irritated tone. "You're joking," Vivian said, clearly confused. "Don't worry about it," Alex waved her off, casting a glance around the table. His eyes landed on Travers, who sneered at him from the other end of the table. Alex felt the weight of the stare but paid little attention to it. He was more interested in sizing up the people around him, curious about his new housemates. It was important to understand the people he'd be living with in this unfamiliar magical world, especially with the rising tension in the wizarding world outside the school walls. Leaning toward Vanessa, he asked quietly, "Do we have anyone named Avery or Snape in our house?" Vanessa looked surprised by the question but quickly answered, "Neither of them are students here now. I think they've both graduated. Why do you ask?" "Oh, no reason," Alex replied casually, but inwardly, he was relieved. He had heard about those names before and was glad they weren't around. Soon, the sorting ceremony ended, and the hall quieted down as an elderly wizard with a long white beard stepped forward. It was Dumbledore, the headmaster. He gave a brief speech, his warm voice filling the hall, but Alex paid close attention to the old man. The famous wizard who led the fight against Voldemort seemed almost ordinary, nothing about him screamed, powerful, to Alex. "That's Dumbledore, the greatest wizard of our time," Vivian whispered to Alex, eyes wide with awe. Alex only nodded, still not sure what to make of him. He listened as Dumbledore finished his speech, signaling the start of the feast. With a tap of his spoon, food appeared on the tables in an instant. Platters of roast chicken, beef, potatoes, vegetables, and more filled the plates. The students cheered and eagerly reached for the food, laughter and excitement filling the air. Alex noticed that while the first years dug in with enthusiasm, the older students, particularly those in Slytherin, were more reserved. Alex cut a piece of lamb chop and ate it slowly, savoring the taste.